Hey, welcome back on into the Coin Flip podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. Today we are going to discuss not only the NCAA tournament for college basketball, not only some NBA. We'll touch a little bit on the Lamar Jackson news going on in the NFL. So a little bit of a sports trifecta going on here on the Coin Flip podcast. How's it going, Martin?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's been a while since, actually, a couple weeks. Sorry about that, but no, it's been good. It's kind of having fun, relaxing, chilling. Spring is in the air.
Might be for you. It's not exactly super springy weather over here. Where
Uh,
I'm at in Iowa. Martin is in Utah, if you don't know. But Martin, let's first dive in. Let's waste no time. Let's get into the NCAA tournament. So in front of us are the full games that we have seen so far. We were recording this late on a Wednesday night. San Diego State, FAU, a 5 versus 8. Miami, UConn, a 5 versus 4 are about to match up on Friday to determine the championship game. Mark, let's kind of just start with our overall thoughts on the tournament. There's been a lot of upsets. I'll go ahead and take the first swing at this. Some people are saying, I've said this a place or two, but I think I don't know if I was on record with this or if I was just saying it in my head or other people in person, but I thought this year was going to have one of the most upsets of all the top seeds ever, and sure enough, it did. I think this might be like the craziest, the highest seeded Final Four ever. Who knows? But I think I saw it coming. All these one seeds were a little shaky, and none of them stood up. Martin.
you're not wrong there. I thought this tournament was so much fun to watch because of the upsets. I think it falls back onto the fact that last year was Final Four blue bloods: North Carolina, Duke, Kansas,
Yep.
Villanova. We had the quads of some of the best programs ever in the country, and this year it's FAU and UConn and San Diego State and Miami. But to the entire tournament, I love the fact that FDU and Princeton upsetted teams. I I kept track of the standings this year, Jacob, and I kept seeing it would be either 1 week or a few weeks or a month. Some one seeded team would get upsetted in the country. I don't remember how many upsets this year were with the one seeds, but there was more than five upsets, and Houston got upset at one. Purdue got upset. Alabama got upset. All these one seeded teams were all shaky. They all looked pretty average. They just weren't some of the most dominant ones in the past. And to the Final Four, this is going to be fun. San Diego State,
It
Darian
is.
Trammell, former WAC player. Miami, I mean, it's not supposed to be a great basketball school. It's supposed to be a football school. UConn, yeah, they're a four-time champ, but what they've gone through in the last 9 years after getting out of the American Athletic Conference, they're lucky to still have a decent program. And FAU, man, it's so cool to have two Florida schools back in the Final Four. Let's see what the Southeast has got, and let's see if the Northeast or the West can take the title. Sorry.
Martin, there you mentioned some upsets there. There was two games in particular, two teams that I was kind of shocked to see them lose where they did lose. Now, I mentioned I thought pretty much all the one seeds were going to lose. The one team I thought that was ranked high was going to do well was Kansas. I thought they
You
were
got a
going to go
point
far
there.
regardless, and everybody else was going to fall there up in the top. But Martin, they lost in the second round.
They
They
did.
lost to Arkansas, the 8th seed. I couldn't believe that. That to me, that might have been the upset of the tournament, just because of how good Kansas was. And then, of course,
I
Purdue. I mean, I didn't think Purdue was going to get to the Final Four, but I sure as hell did not think they were going to lose in the first round to Fairleigh Dickinson. They didn't just lose. I mean, They weren't even a shot away. Weren't even really 2 shots away. So those were some big time upsets. Martin, as the tournament kind of moved on, I mean, we saw some good teams look like they were going to go the distance. Texas, Martin, I thought Texas was going to beat Miami for sure. I'm a big Hurricane football fan, and I like watch the Miami Hurricanes play some basketball too. And my Tar Heels are out, so this is a good year to root for the Hurricanes. Kind of back to back years, honestly, and glad to see them in the Final Four.
Yeah, I think touch back on your point about the best upsets of the tournament. I think to touch on your Miami point, I think the upset of Miami beating Houston, that was the upset to me that was kind of shocking because what Houston did to Auburn in the round before, Auburn's a very good defensive team and a very good rebounding team. And Miami was not the best rebounding team coming into this game. Houston was the better rebounding team. And Miami did what they did defensively and rebounding wise. They just shut down Houston in ways that I just didn't see they could. I thought that was the upset right there of the entire tournament. I think overall, I think it was just it's so much fun, and I jumped on San Diego State's bandwagon right after they beat Alabama. I wanted to join Darian Trammell on this ride and see if he could win it because rooting for former WAC players is just fun. San Diego State has just played so dang good, and I'm so impressed by them. And I mean, it's a program that's not filled with championships, but I mean, it's a
No.
school that Kawhi Leonard went to, and you had the head coach Fisher who coached the Fab Five, and their assistant coach now is their head coach who coached the Fab Five too. So you got a lot of good veteran presence on that bench, and I'm impressed with San Diego State.
Martin, I'll be honest that I don't think anybody really has spent a ton of time watching the film of San Diego State and FAU. It's impossible to be glued to every single one of these games and see all these teams every single time. But I have been watching Miami. I have been, seeing UConn every now and then. And maybe it's the seeds. Maybe it's my head not fully buying into how crazy this March Madness has fully been. But my takeaway going into this Final Four is that the winner of the Miami UConn game is going to win the national championship. Martin, I just cannot get my head around a San Diego State, a Florida Atlantic winning the men's Division One national basketball championship in the Final Four. I just can't see it happening. I could see Miami winning it. I could see UConn winning it. That makes sense in my head. Neither of those other teams on that other side of the bracket I can see happening. Honestly, it might be the same thing with the women's bracket. Martin, I know not a lot of people follow. I'll just sprinkle it in. Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes are going to play South Carolina. I think the
Yeah,
winner
they
of
are.
that will go on to win the women's bracket. The women's bracket has not been something to make fun of this year. That has been legit. But back to the men's side, I think the Miami UConn game will decide. Miami is a 5.5 point underdog. Who knows? Miami has been the underdog in some of these past couple of games, and they've ended up winning. So can't count the Hurricanes out.
I'm jumping on San Diego State. I'm riding San Diego State all to the very end. I think realistically, I agree with you. Miami or UConn sounds like the team that should win it. I'm riding San Diego State all the way. Darian Trammell, former WAC player. I just want to see a WAC player win a title. It'd be so cool. Like it just would be an extraordinary story. So I'm taking them. And to your point of, like FAU and San Diego State, you can't imagine them winning. May I remind you, the greatest college basketball story I know off the top of my head is the 1966 Texas Western Miners, who are now known as UTEP, University of Texas El Paso. So, if a school all the way down in El Paso, Texas, sorry, can go beat a true blue blood in
Yeah.
Kentucky with Adolph Rupp and with I forget his name, who Pat Riley. I you know what? Anything's possible in the NCAA March Madness tournament, man. Anything is possible.
And a good segue to our NBA segment, Martin, is that I just got a notification a couple of minutes ago on my phone, and it's from an app I just downloaded. It's the Timberwolves app. Martin, I'm going to be going to an NBA game in
So
2
cool.
days. On Friday, the Minnesota Timberwolves will be playing the Los Angeles Lakers. So I won't be watching much March Madness, but I will be watching some NBA basketball.
Hey man,
I
you take a bunch of photos of Anthony Davis and videos, man. You send that to me because that's gonna be cool as hell. I'm so happy for you, bro. I can't believe you're going to go see the Lakers.
so I unfortunately I will not be getting media credentials, but because they were full. But I still have a ticket. I'm still a fan. I plan on getting there super early and getting as close as I possibly can to
Man,
the floor.
I would be hugging that little section where they come out and out of the tunnel. I'd be hugging those railings the entire time, trying to beg them just to notice me, man. That's so cool. I'm happy for you, bud.
So let's take a look at the standings right now in the NBA, Martin. This is going to be an open discussion for our NBA segment, but I wanted to talk about our thoughts, kind of looking at the standings, how we think the standings are going to finish out, and who could be dangerous in the postseason. And I want to also get an MVP pick from you, Martin, and I'll give mine as well because we're about 5 games out, and I think it's safe enough that we can give our MVP picks. But let's start with the standings. Martin, you know my team is the Lakers, so I'll go ahead and
Yes.
start with them. 38 and 38. I think all things considered, Martin, I went through their schedule a little bit ago, and I counted like 5 games where either they lost by like a buzzer beater or a super bad call, like down the stretch, the very end, or something happened in overtime with a couple seconds left, something like that. There was like 5 games like that. You combine that with starting the season 2-10 with Russell Westbrook. After all that, they're 500. They got a win tonight, earlier as we were recording this, after the Bulls game. Hoping LeBron doesn't take a rest game again next time on the Timberwolves game. But, Martin, the Lakers are looking good. I like what they did in the trade deadline. The questions are going to be Darvin Ham, LeBron's ankle, AD's consistency, and the rotations of this team in the postseason. It doesn't matter who they're playing. If they can get those things figured out, they'll have it figured out. But the likelihood of them getting every single one of those figured out might not be super good. Let me touch here on the Warriors for a second, Mark, before I hand this off to you. I would recommend buying stock in the Warriors right now. I hear that Andrew Wiggins is doing some workouts. You know, he's not injured. He's not injured. He has the personal issue, which is totally understandable if you have heard of that. But he's coming back. He's been kind of a huge piece of this team, and I think this season is really showing his impact of how valuable he was last year. He's the new Andre Iguodala for this team. Martin, they need him. If he's back for the postseason, I mean, you could look at a very realistic shot of the Warriors getting to the conference finals, at least.
So touch on your 2 points. The Lakers. What a matter of 3 years of a difference it goes from winning the title and the bubble, being the number one team, looking like a dynasty, possibly maybe, to starting the season. They started off and making it to the playoffs. Like just making it to the playoffs is almost in a celebration for the Lakers to have. You know, I mean, just start the parade down in downtown Los Angeles. Um, to the Warriors, I agree with you. I think they're on the rise. I think after what happened last night with Draymond Green and the tech with Brandon Ingram and the comeback win and Curry almost scoring 40, I think you're absolutely right. If Wiggins can get his head right, he'll be a solid player for this team because they are on the rise. Kaminga is starting to come along. Jordan Poole, though he's dropped his points being off the bench instead of starting, maybe they will trust him again to put him in the starting lineup in the playoffs. But I don't trust them enough because they got 31 wins at home and they only have nine wins on the road. Jacob, 9 wins on the road.
It's bad.
9 wins on the
It's
road
bad.
are for teams that are 15-49. You cannot be a contending team and be that bad on the road. What if they're on a road schedule for a series? That's 4 games they possibly know they can only walk out with maybe a win. That cannot happen. I mean, they have to get some type of consistency to get in their heads that they can't lose on the road like that. Because if they don't play good, they'll be out quick.
Martin, I want to look now over to the Eastern Conference and looking at the matchups that we would perhaps get. I think we're in store for some good ones. Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs against the Knicks.
Oh yeah.
The Boston Celtics against the Miami Heat.
Ooh.
Martin, I like these matchups. These are pretty solid. Now, when
And
we're talking about the Eastern Conference, I think this is where the MVP discussion comes up.
mm,
Martin, here's something crazy. I think people are forgetting in the MVP discussion right now that look at Jokic, right? Jokic has had Jamal Murray for a good portion of the season, right? Jamal Murray, of course, coming back for the injury, but he's been there. You go over to Joel Embiid. He's had James Harden. James Harden has played good. He's been there. You go
true.
over to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Martin, the Bucks have a 3-game lead on the Celtics, a 5-game lead on the 76ers in today's NBA. That is massive. Martin, do you want to know how many games Chris Middleton has started this season? Take a guess. How many games has Chris Middleton, the second best player on the Bucks, started this season?
He has started under 30 games. I know that. And
16.
add and
16.
that and to add more kind of in that wound, Drew Holiday, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Chris Middleton have played under 10 games combined. They have not played together all season.
MVP. MVP. What does it stand for? Most valuable player.
I agree.
Giannis Antetokounmpo's team has the best record in the league, and he's been doing it with Drew Holiday, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, and Brook Lopez.
Yes,
Now
it is.
those can be some solid role players, but none of who I just mentioned was James Harden, was Jamal Murray. So even if they're Tyrese Maxey in there or Jamal Michael Porter, I mean, Martin, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the MVP. He deserves it. Who do you got?
Well, I want to touch on one point before I pick my MVP, which is if you go back, Jacob, let's go back 10 years ago, 2013. Okay. That was a pretty stacked MVP race considering that it was only LeBron and Kevin Durant trying to beat each other for the MVP and LeBron coming out on the top. So, my point is, you go to 2015, it's James Harden, Steph Curry, LeBron James in the conversation, and they're all under 6'8". Jacob, do you realize that the top three in the MVP race are not shorter than 6'10"? It's Giannis, 7 foot, Joel Embiid, 7 foot, Jokic, 7 foot. It's
And
the
Martin, here's a
generation of the Giants.
Martin,
The
here's a stat
Giants,
for you. It's the second time, I believe it's only the second time in NBA history where we're going to get back-to-back seasons where it's the same top three in the MVP voting.
It's the generation of the Giants. Considering these speedy guards have tried to outshoot these 7-footers, the 7-footers have been able to develop the same shooting guard abilities they have. Centers these days are
Not
trying to
even
shoot.
though, just simple, passing, dribbling, mid-range, higher IQ, running the floor. There's
I
there's
mean,
a lot of detail. None of them are really stroking threes other than Embiid, but I mean Jokic is a unicorn. Joel Embiid is a Shaquille O'Neal in a 2023 era, and Giannis Antetokounmpo is Euro stepping and spin moving every single time to the basket, no matter what.
my point overall is the Giants are taking back the game. Considering the guards were trying to run it, the Giants are trying to take it back, and they're doing a fabulous job of it. My MVP is still Jokic, and the Denver Nuggets would not be a number one seed without him. Okay, they have a great team, and they're a very well deft team. But Jokic just does things that offensively just make you just make you gobsmack like at all. It's amazing to watch a dude that can average 15 and 30 on an average night. It's amazing to watch. It's like watching Charles Barkley again. I mean, seriously, I think Embiid is is making more of a case that he's staying healthy, and he could really make a solid case for winning this MVP because we have not talked about his health in a couple years. He's been able to manage it. He's been able to finally get a hold on it, and I'm impressed by that. Seriously, I have to
And
tip
but
my
I
cap to
think
him on that.
but I think if Embiid were to win it, Martin, he would be the MVP who's missed the most games out of all MVPs in a season. So it's hard probably for the voters to maybe want to do that. Even in today's day and age, do we really want to set a record for the most missed seasons in an MVP?
No, you don't, and that's why Giannis seems like the solid choice. Though I feel like it should be Jokic. I 100% agree with you on Giannis. Giannis has been doing this without
Giannis
without his
just
top.
doesn't have the media narrative behind him because he already established himself as like a top 20 player, and there's no longer any question marks around him right now. But if he were to
Exactly.
win one more, then there would be, oh, is he potentially top 10 maybe if he were to win one more. But for now, there's no really questions about him. Everybody knows he's probably top 20, 25, but
Yeah, he's getting the LeBron James treatment. He's getting the
yeah.
Kobe Bryant treatment. He's getting the Michael Jordan treatment. He's getting the treatment as we're treating you as a top player, but we're also going to hold you to the standard of the top player. And sometimes you don't get the top player respect. I mean, dude, Kobe Bryant only won one MVP. The dude should at least won like six. Okay, he was the best player in the game, and it's absurd that he only won one. LeBron James should have won five in a row. Okay, I give him that. Yeah, Derrick Rose was Derrick Rose in 2011. That was a good song story for the NBA. LeBron James should have won that title MVP, but again, he got the LeBron treatment. So if Giannis gets the LeBron treatment, that's only because the NBA is holding him to that standard. Like there's nothing else for him to accomplish. So if given the MVP to someone else, it wouldn't really matter to them. That's kind of the point, and that's kind of sad because if Giannis deserves it, Giannis deserves it.
Martin, let's now go over to Lamar Jackson. And Martin, I don't have a ton to say on Lamar, but I want to get your feedback on this. I more want to save the talk for when Lamar finds a new team. But I think this whole situation it's been unfortunate for Lamar. I think it is also unfortunate that athletic quarterbacks have a proven history in the NFL of being injury prone and not lasting as long. Now, it's also unfortunate that most of these athletic quarterbacks are African American. And so it's a bad look. And the Ravens don't want to get in a situation where they have this 5-6 year deal with a quarterback and they're paying him $40-50 million a year, fully guaranteed, and all of a sudden 2 years into the deal, Lamar's hurt, and then for 3 years you are the Cleveland Browns of the 2010s. So I I can see what the Ravens are doing, but it's really unfortunate because Lamar, he actually still is in his prime. He's still good. He was banged up this year. Is that a sign of things to come? Can he be healthy for the next couple of years? I don't know, but it's a tough situation. It's the reality of the NFL. The NFL is constantly thinking not the NFL is not really ever thinking about next season. Martin, the NFL, these GMs, these owners are always thinking 3 years down the line when really the NFL is decided on a year-to-year basis. So it's an unfortunate situation. But Martin, what is your take on Lamar Jackson? I know you wanted to discuss this.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss this, and I see where you're coming with this. I don't think it's to that degree. I hope it's not. That would be a bad look for the NFL. It's it is unfortunate for Lamar Jackson. I think this is a situation. Really, Jacob, is just weird. I mean, it would be a scenario where if you pick the top quarterback in the NFL and he only had a mid-average record, then you can sit there and say, "Well, we took him 32nd in the draft. We thought he was a first-round pick. He didn't turn out that way. You move on." But Lamar Jackson won an MVP, and he's had decent numbers, and he's 45-16 overall, and he's not flashing a. He's not just a flash in the pan. I just don't understand the hate around Lamar Jackson. I don't understand the necessity to keep downgrading him as if he's just a running back that's playing quarterback. I just don't get it because I don't, Jacob. I don't know too many NFL MVP quarterbacks that have to earn a contract like this because this is just weird. This is the Baltimore Ravens. I don't feel like they do this
But
shady
Martin,
stuff.
I've heard we all know the side of the story, and I think and like I've said, it's unfortunate, and I do think Lamar deserves his money. And here's the thing, Martin, if he wants, he can get this money from a different team. Some team is going to pay Lamar Jackson however much he wants. He has to find that team. For a contender, if the Ravens want to be a contender, the writing might just be on the wall that Lamar Jackson has sustained enough injuries already to this point. March, you mentioned that it's kind of unprecedented for an MVP this young not to get paid, but it's also kind of unprecedented for an MVP this young to have been hurt as much as he has. And so when it comes to contracts, GMs are looking for productivity and availability. And Lamar Jackson is great in one of those categories, and he's not so great in the other. And that ultimately is why they are this far apart on the contract discussion.
I remember week one watching the Miami and Baltimore. Was it? Yeah, I think it was this season. I went to Wing Nuts and I decided to go watch the games and have fun. And I remember talking to some guys at the bar about the contract, how he wanted 250 and guaranteed, and all that. I think people are wrapping the money around in a valid way. I think the question keeps coming up: is he worth $250 million? Is he worth $250 million? I don't know. I mean, I think that scares NFL owners to think that they got to pay somebody $250 million to play for a football team. I mean, the money that Deshaun Watson got, 230 fully guaranteed by the Cleveland Browns, is set the new president. That I mean, that's the new standard for paying a quarterback in the NFL, and it's absurd a little bit. I'm just like, oh my god, $230 million. I mean, when guys are getting $100 million contracts, sure, why not? That didn't seem so far outrageous, but 200. I mean, it's starting to get to the point. Is that something that the NFL wants to do, and that's an answer they've answered in saying no. I think I think Lamar wants the money because he wants to set the new standard, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just don't think Baltimore wants to be the team to set that. I don't think they want to be the fools on that. But they haven't done Lamar any good either, Jacob. I mean, Des Bryant, Deshaun Jackson. I mean, you brought in Watson. They brought in Sammy Watkins. I mean, they brought in some basically some scrubs for him to throw the football to. They brought in his cousin Hollywood Brown. They thought that would work. I mean, they basically have drafted nobody to give this dude any help. They've tried to fill it up with running backs and Mark Andrews. They really have done him no good offensively or defensively. And I think that's the unfortunate thing about it is Baltimore used to be this defensive respected team, and I mean, they get beat around from time to time. I mean, if you blow a lead like that you did to Miami that fast, I mean, you got some serious problems on defense, considering John Harbaugh is a defensive coach.
And that's the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. Doing this again here on our YouTube channel. Martin, always fun talking it up with you about NCAA, NBA, NFL, Dixie State, Utah Tech, you name it.
Yeah. Yeah, Utah Tech is doing their thing. Gonna get hopefully some transfers. Drake Allen from SUU jumped into the transfer portal. He's rumored to have some special girlfriend down here to play soccer. So maybe we get Drake Allen. That'd be really cool. Yeah, always keeping up with Utah Tech. Spring football's right around the corner. Baseball, softball, they're in action. We're having fun.
So